The other day I did a video spotlighting another content creator's video in which that content creator is essentially it didn't express. I'm trying to find the right words because the words that I'm going to use are going to sound incorrect. But for lack of a better way of putting it, didn't exactly express a gratitude for being alive. And it expressed how if they had a wish with a genie, it might be to just go back and never exist at any point in time. And I did a video about this person talking about my feelings when it comes to this subject. Now, this person is a veteran, a husband, a father, does content creation. And let me just, if I could for a moment, because this is the person, this person leaving the comment here. When I talk about the things that are important in my life, I always put being a husband at the top. Because that's the person I chose to spend the rest of my life with. My children come a very close second. I chose to have children, but I chose to have children, raise them, and put them out in the world to be individuals of their own. I chose to go to my grave with my partner. That's why I put husband and then children. When I just described this person, I said veteran husband, father. Veteran husband, father. The reason why I put the veteran first is because I never did serve. I enlisted in the Navy twice, never made it to boot camp, never made it out of military enlistment processing. If you guys never have enlisted and aren't watching, there's a 2-day process called MEPS that you go through. And even for people that utilize the military as a means of just avoiding college and getting some education because the funding isn't there, it's still a much nobler thing to put on a uniform and sacrifice a portion of the time of your life, a period of your life, to serve the country that you live in and potentially put your life on the line for strangers to be free. It's a much nobler thing than I will ever do. So I always put the veteran shit first. So first and foremost, thank you for your service, even though we're having a disagreement in how this whole thing goes down. But I disagreed with this gentleman, and he came back with a comment here, and he said the following: yes, grateful to have them in my life, meaning his wife and his kids. But grateful for life itself, I need to experience some other perspective in order to be grateful for life itself. Does that make sense? And I got to be honest with you, it doesn't, but I'm trying to understand. Because to me, and this is just where I come from, to me, my wife and my kids and my grandkids, I don't know if you're a grandfather yet, but my wife, my kids, and my grandkids are part of the reason that I have a different perspective on life. It's part of that viewing life through a perspective that makes me want to be here, that doesn't make me understand why you don't see them and go, that I'm grateful to be alive. What did you say? Grateful for life itself. Yes, because if I didn't have life itself, I don't get these experiences. I don't get to go watch my daughters play softball, my son play football. I don't get to watch my kids graduate school and have relationships and jobs of their own and figure things out as toddlers. All of the things that come with being a parent. Like the time my daughter walked down to her room with a handful of stuff and couldn't turn her doorknob and looked at me and went, I can't get this fucking door open. Right? Those little moments in your life. Those are the perspectives I'm talking about. That's the perspective of life. Am I grateful to be alive? Yes, otherwise I can't experience that. Otherwise, I never got to experience anything that my wife and I have been through for the last 30 years. I'm trying, man. I'm not trying to argue with you. I'm trying to understand you. And you're telling me that you are grateful to have your wife and your kids and the experiences that come with that in your life, but you're not grateful for life yourself because you'd have to look through a lens of a different perspective to find gratitude for life. And I'm saying, how are your wife and kids not those perspectives? Just two of them. I found perspective in being grateful to be alive, oddly enough, in what I did for a living. I was a landscape contractor for 26 years. I loved what I did for a living. I absolutely loved doing what I did. I was one of those people that was lucky enough to the reason why I did it. Otherwise, I did other jobs that bored the shit out of me. Landscaping, I loved it. I stuck with it for 26 goddamn years. I lived in a tent and hitchhiked back and forth across the country for 4 years because I loved that perspective of life. And then I moved into somebody who has a job, and then somebody who's married, and then somebody who has kids, and all of these different perspectives of life that come at me. I mean, I look at it from every single lens, right? I look at it through the lens of all the different people that I've known over the course of my lifetime that have turned me on to different types of music, right? Just that's just one little sliver of life, but that's a perspective of life that I have that makes me grateful to be alive. My mom turned me on to Elvis and Kenny Rogers at a very young age. And then society turned me on to the very first stuff I was listening to on the radio back in the day, which oddly enough was like the Fat Boys and Run DMC and Tiffany and all of that stuff, the popular music back then. And then Jill Krejci turned me on to Bon Jovi, and I got hooked on the rock metal or the rock music of that time. And then my cousin Junior turned me on to classic rock and Jimi Hendrix and Stevie Ray Vaughan, along with Metallica and Anthrax and Exodus and things of that nature. And then my friend Alan turned me on to punk music. And then this one turned me on to that, and that one turned me on to this. And you go down the line of all the different people that turned you on to different music over the years. And you have all of this music in your life now, and you're like, it's a weird mixture of shit, and all of these cool different people brought it into my life. Just that sliver alone is worth living. It's a perspective of life, in my opinion, that makes me grateful to be alive. So when you say to a father of 4, grandfather of 3, and husband of 3 decades, yes, I'm grateful to have my wife and my kids in my life and have the experiences that come with that. But that doesn't mean I'm grateful to be alive because I don't have a perspective of gratitude towards life to look through. I say you're looking through it, my man. I, you ever held your kid's hand walking through the zoo on a Sunday afternoon? That's a perspective of life that makes me happy to be alive, man. No, it doesn't make sense to me. I'm not trying to argue, but it does not make sense to me.